Hi folks, hope you enjoyed having a little bit of a break last week and that you are excited to get through the end of the course. We've got 2 weeks left, so we've got 2 more normative theories about sort of what the right ways to live in general and the right ways to live in society are. This week we're looking at John Stuart Mill's concept of utilitarianism. Now, John Stuart Mill is not the first one to put this view forward. First of all, there were the Epicureans in ancient Greece following Epicurus, who thought that sort of the greatest good was happiness, more like pleasure in their case. And more recently, actually, Mill's teacher, the person that he's taking a lot of this from, is named Jeremy Bentham. And he was sort of the father of modern utilitarianism, but his view's a little more crazy and he's a lot harder to understand. So we're going to read and talk about John Stuart Mill, who's the more famous utilitarian. He's got a better view than Bentham in general, and I think he's got a lot right, though he also has a lot of difficulties that we can talk about on the webboard. So, Mill starts off the book, aptly named Utilitarianism, with a point that says this. He says, philosophers can't agree on anything. And of course, many of you throughout the course have noted this same sort of thing. Philosophers don't agree on much. But he says, well, look, neither do scientists, as it ends up. Scientists squabble about even the very basic principles of what they're doing all the time. Biologists, chemists, physicists can't even agree sometimes on the most basic laws or methods of what they do. So maybe, he says, what we need to do is just accept something plausible as a starting ground and move on. Stop arguing about these little tiny basic things and deal instead with sort of the end results. These are what really matter, right? So he says, well, how do we figure out where to start in ethics? Well, Mill divides up ethical theorists into 2 major schools, 2 major groups. And the first one of them is the intuitive. And as you might assume from the name, intuitive sounds like intuition. These are folks who think that basic, important moral truths are just self-evident, right? We just sort of know them when you think about it. Some things seem really right, some things seem really wrong, and we just need to go from there. He contrasts these with the inductive, people who think that they're not intuitive. We need evidence. We need to go out into the world and look at actual cases. So I can't just think, yeah, killing seems wrong. We need to sort of not quite study what killing is like, but we at least need to have some experiences before we can make a judgment. Mill thinks neither of these are very good, but he thinks that both schools get some basic things right. Both of them, he says, kind of get mired in details and they have silly arguments with each other, but they stumble accidentally on some of the right ideas. And he says that the times that they stumble on what's right are times when they're following what he calls the principle of utility. The principle of utility says this, basically, things that make us happy are good. Now it can go a little bit beyond that. Utility can be happiness, and for Mill it's usually happiness, but you can also consider utility as sort of what makes our lives go well. So you can also include things like having enough food to live, having enough shelter to stay out of the cold, sort of basic needs of life, what makes your life go okay, can also be sort of wrapped in under the overall roof of utility. And Mill says, look, even Kant, who probably disagrees with utilitarianism very strongly, Kant, who we talked about last week, uses it too. Kant talks about what the consequences would be if everyone did whatever they're thinking about. So utilitarianism is what's called a consequentialist theory. It says that not the motives matter, like Kant, but the end results matter. What matters in the end is how things go. And things go better when they make us happy, when they make us well off, and they go poorly when they do the opposite of that. And Mill says, look, even Kant talks about this kind of thing. Mill's going to run into trouble here because he's going to say, well, look, can I prove it? No. But the thing is, I shouldn't have to. Mill's going to say there are 2 ways to prove what's good in the world. The first way is we all just accept it. This sounds kind of like the intuitive view. The second way, the easier way, is you show that it leads to something that we all accept as good. So at the top level of whatever we all accept, he says you can't prove what's the very best thing. You can't prove sort of the top level good. You can prove that things lead to things that we all agree are good, but you can't sort of force us all to agree on what's good. What you can do, though, is you can explain your theory really well so that we have the right kind of intuition. You can help people understand what you're talking about so that they come to see, well, yeah, we should all just accept that the principle of utility is the right thing. So this is what Mill's going to make his goal for the early part of the book, the part of the book that we're reading. He's going to say, my goal should be to explain what utilitarianism really is, and as a result of that, I also need to explain what it's not, because there are a lot of misconceptions out there that will mess people up. So here's what he's going to do, and we'll see him start that in our next video.